Welcome, this is Jim, host of the Faith Influencer podcast, where we're going to dive into discussions on faith's role in everyday life, from navigating blended families to overcoming challenges. I'm a husband, a father, a Bible teacher, an advocate for applying faith to everyday life. So tune in as I share personal stories, valuable insights, and practical wisdom. Welcome to Faith Influencer. This is Jim Cunningham. I have a question for you. It was a question actually I heard the other day as I was listening on to another conversation. I seem to be good at that, or at least I run into that a lot, hear other conversations. And if it relates to the subject of our podcast on blended families, I get quiet and hear what they say. And here was the question that was asked of the young lady: Are you done? Talking about her marriage. Are you done? So here's the scene. We had a older lady who was, I could tell, in the position of the counselor. And we had the younger lady who I'm going to guess was 30s, 35, somewhere in there. And she was somewhat distraught, trying, because it was in a public place, trying not to cry. And they're having this conversation. And the older lady just point blank, right when she sat down to meet her in this public place, looked at her and just said, "Are you done? Are you done?" And the younger lady couldn't answer at first. She struggled with that answer, and the conversation went on. So I'm paying attention, and I'm realizing that she's in a difficult marriage. She's considering a divorce. I looked at her hand, and she wasn't wearing her ring. So she had reached the place where she was considering getting a divorce. The lady who was counseling her, walking her through this discussion, was giving her what I thought was some good advice, but that's how the conversation went. And she had to wrestle with the question, are you done? Are you done? So I pose that question to you today. For those of you who are struggling in your marriage, is that where you are? How do you answer this question? Are you done? So let me give you some things that I think might help you with that. I'm going to tell you this at the beginning, though. I will never answer the question for you. I'm not going to sit here and say, if this and this and this are in place, then you should be done. I'm not going to do that. That's your decision. But I want to walk you through maybe some things that you haven't thought about before in answering that question. Here's where I struggle. My struggle is that I'm very idealistic. And that's why sometimes when you talk about divorce and remarriage and those things, it's difficult because my idealism doesn't want that to happen. Now, my realism tells me that it's not only going to happen, but it's going to happen more times than not. But idealistically, you want everything to be perfect and everyone to be happy and they live their whole life together. That's idealistic. Just not going to work that way in most cases. So when do I have hope that a marriage that is about to crumble, that is about to walk through divorce court, when do I look at that marriage and think, I think you can make it. Don't do it yet. When do I feel that way? I want to start there. Here's when I feel that way. I feel that way when both the husband and the wife want it to work. Now, maybe they've reached a place where it's not working. Maybe that's where you are. Maybe you reached a place where we just don't get along. We all we do is fight. We argue. We don't agree all of a sudden on things. Someone told me the other day about their wife. He said, when we were dating, those little peculiar things about her I thought was cute, but now they irritate the heck out of me. Ladies will say, I'm thinking of one in particular. She said, this was a long time ago. She's actually in heaven now, but she would say of her husband, and they would laugh about it. She would say, when we were dating, he always told the funniest stories and the funniest jokes, and I would just laugh. But now I leave the room because they're so stupid. Their relationship changed. Sometimes you get into a point in your relationship where you just Maybe you feel like, I'm just not attracted to him. I'm not attracted to her anymore. I just don't feel it anymore. I don't want a divorce, but those things aren't there. Here's when I have hope. When someone's struggling, I'm not I'm not going to be shocked that you're struggling. I'm not going to be shocked that divorce has entered your mind. That's normal for most people. I'm not going to be shocked that you're wondering if you're going to make it or not. I'm not surprised at all that you are walking through the scenario in your head. Okay, if we get a divorce, then this is what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to find my own place to live, or I'm going to have to learn how to pay bills. If we were sharing the bills, I've got to take all of that on. What about the children? I'm not surprised that you're already thinking about those things. But if I was sitting down with both of you, I would feel hopeful if you both said, oh, well, we don't want a divorce. We just can't seem to overcome our struggle. For you, there's hope, okay? If you both want it, I don't care that you're struggling. Are you following me? I don't care that you're struggling. You can't get out of the struggle. But if you both want the marriage to work, there's hope. Why? Because we can figure out the struggle. We can figure out how to deal with the things that are causing you to want to get a divorce, or I'm not going to make it, or doubt that it's going to make. We can deal with those things. There are some steps that can be taken to overcome those issues. Matter of fact, it is true. I know it's coming from my idealism, but I'm going to tell you that this one is true. It is true that you can fall in love again. It is true that you can like each other again. I mean, does it surprise you if I say, I want to hear your response to this. I want you to, in the comments, respond to this. Does it surprise you that most marriages go through a phase where you don't like each other? I mean, you just really don't like each other. Does that surprise you that that's normal in marriage? Well, it shouldn't. Doesn't surprise me because it is normal. Does it surprise you that you'll go through a season when you're together, but chances are you're just married? There's not, you're friends, you live in the same house, you're raising children together, you're committed to marriage, but that's all it is. Listen, it's normal to go through that season as well. But if you both want it, you both don't like the idea of getting a divorce, I want you to be thinking, let's not give up yet then. Let's not give up. Let's not call a lawyer and walk through divorce proceedings yet. So if that's you, hang in there. There are some things you can do to get beyond your frustration, but don't give it all up when you can still make it work. Okay? That's the first one. Now here's the next one. What about this scenario? And remember our question, are you done? Are you done? What about this scenario? There are those of you who are listening, all of these situations, some of you are going to relate to. Here's another one. Here's one where, let's say, the husband doesn't want a divorce and wants to make it work, but the wife has reached a place where she's ready to leave. So what do you do in that case? Or vice versa. What do you do in those cases when one of you want it and the other one doesn't? Well, you can't make someone stay. So you're kind of limited in that area. You can't force them to remain married to you. But if the struggle is there and one of you is feeling it more than the other and you're not sure you want to make it work, then the other person who wants to make it work, let's say it's you, sir, if you want to make it work, you have to be the carrier of hope. You have to be the carrier of hope. She's not feeling it. She's talking to you about divorce, but you don't want the divorce. You keep verbalizing what you want. You keep saying, I don't want this. You keep suggesting things to make this work. It's breaking your heart that she wants to leave. You're the one who says, let's go to counseling. I want to give you a thought though on that, because sometimes when you have a spouse that doesn't want to make it work anymore, and you say, let's go to counseling, and they don't want to go to counseling, what do? I'll tell you exactly what you do. You go to counseling. You go to counseling by yourself. Let them know you're going to counseling. You're not doing it to manipulate them. I'm not saying that. You're going to counseling for yourself until hopefully they will join you in counseling. I have seen oftentimes that if you're going to counseling, the thing that she's frustrated about, she sees you working on. You're going to counseling, you're working on it, you want this to work. Let's just keep following that trail, hoping that it will endear you to her and she will begin to change her mind about that. So if you are the one who's wanting to hang in there, then maybe you by yourself are the person who has to carry the hope. Verbalize it in your house. Say it out loud. Say it to her. Remind her over and over that you love her and you don't want to get a divorce. That's if you're the only one who wants to make it work. So I think I want to say this to you as a Christian. Nothing is too hard for God. Your marriage is struggling. Nothing is too hard for God. God can revive your marriage. As a matter of fact, God can soften your heart. God can soften the heart of your spouse. I want to remind you of a story in the Bible. It's a weird name. In previous podcasts, I told this story, but let me, especially for you new listeners, and there are many of you, thank you. Let me remind you of this story. There's this guy in the Old Testament named Hosea. And as a matter of fact, there's an Old Testament book named after him. He was a prophet. And Hosea had a wife, and his wife had a weird name to us. Her name was Gomer. And she became unfaithful. And that's the route she was going. So what did Hosea do? Hosea followed what God said, and he began to pray this prayer. He began to, what we would say, build a hedge of protection around his wife. He wanted to make this work. He began to pray literally a hedge of thorns around her. And this is what the idea was as he prayed this hedge of thorns. He prayed, God, put this hedge of thorns around my wife so that nothing works out for her. Everywhere she turns, she's bumping into these thorns. Soften her heart, bring her to her knees. Place this hedge of thorns around her. He prayed that hedge of protection around her, and if you go on and read, you realize that it worked, that it did happen. Everywhere she turned, she came to a dead end, and her life came to a halt. And then she opened her eyes and realized what was going on. So maybe that's where you are. You so desperately want it to work. Maybe you need to read the book of Hosea and start praying a hedge of protection around your wife that God would soften their heart. Remember what I said? Nothing is too hard for God. Are you done? That's the question. Are you done? Now, sometimes I see in the Bible where God just gets really drastic. Let me just say that. Really drastic. I'll give you one other story. Do you remember this? You remember that Old Testament king called Nebuchadnezzar? Do you remember what God did to him? His heart got so hard. And sometimes, and I know it's so, sometimes you're married to this Nebuchadnezzar. You're married to this guy who thinks everything now revolves around him or everything revolves around her. And here's what God did to Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar had great success and he built this great Babylonian kingdom. And he decided that it was all because of him. It was because he was so wonderful. And he took all the praise for it, all the glory for it. And all he knew was that he was great. Well, God brought him to his knees. And do you remember the story? God literally caused his mind to begin to fade. And for 7 years, he became a beast walking out in the field, crawling out in the fields. His nails grew almost like hooves on a cow, and he grazed in the grass. And he did that for 7 years. God brought him down. And finally, Nebuchadnezzar's mind, he came to his senses and realized that it was all God's power, not me. It was because of God's doing, not my doing. So what am I saying? I'm saying nothing's too hard for God. God could take the hardest heart of the most pagan king and bring him to his knees. I'm saying to you, are you done? Are you done? Don't give up so easily. Don't walk away so easily. God can do things in the heart of a spouse who doesn't want it, even if they don't want it. God can do some things and soften their heart. And so I want to encourage you in that way. Here's the last thing I want to say to you is that unfortunately, sometimes when someone wants the marriage and the other doesn't, and I ask you, are you done? And you say, absolutely not, but they are, you turn into a different person. You turn into this person who becomes weak and cowardly, and you try to overdo your affection for the person. You try to overcompensate for them because you're so afraid that they're going to leave. They're going to disrespect you more when you do that. They're going to disrespect you more when you become weak and this little puppy dog who wants to follow them around. And then what's going to happen is you're going to become really jealous of wherever they go, or you're going to always worry about what they're thinking. Keep it together. That's going to push them away even further if you become that person. So keep it together. Live a life that pleases the Lord. Don't go down this wrong path. Win them by your example. Win them by being the person that you're supposed to be. Don't react to them. Be what God wants you to be. So, are you done? Are you done? Well, you have to answer that question. I can't answer that question for you. But I do want to say, before you're done, make sure that you've dealt with forgiveness issues. Make sure that you are praying for them. Make sure that that you and your heart are settled in your own lifestyle. You do what's right. You go to counseling. You pray that God soften their heart. You pray that God soften your heart. Just don't give up so easily. That's the hard part in our world days. People give up so easily. If they get crossways with their spouse, they're ready to get a divorce. They're ready to give up. This is too hard. Well, it's going to be hard. But are you done? Don't regret it and walk away too quick. I'm excited to see what you're going to say in the comments. Thank you as always for joining us at Faith Influencer. This is Jim Cunningham.